When Daniel Blackthorn rode through the pine-covered hills toward his late father's mountain lodge, twilight was already falling. The air smelled of rain and pine, and the sound of his horse's hooves echoed against the rocky slopes. He had come home to bury the man who'd raised him, to face the silence that lingered between them even after death. But as he approached the old log cabin, smoke curled from the chimney. Someone was there. His rifle instinctively lifted, the weight of the unknown pressing against his chest like an old wound he hadn't yet learned to let heal. He dismounted quietly, boots sinking into wet moss. The cabin door creaked open beneath his hand, revealing a dimly lit room where firelight flickered over wooden walls lined with his father's old hunting gear. But it wasn't the familiar scent of tobacco and whiskey that froze him. It was the figure standing in the center of the room. A woman. Her long dark hair was braided with white feathers, her stance regal, unyielding. She turned slowly, her amber eyes meeting his without fear. "You are his son," she said. Her voice carried both strength and sorrow. Daniel's heart thudded once, hard. He tightened his grip on the rifle. "Who are you?" he asked, his voice rough from the trail. The woman's eyes gleamed in the light of the hearth. "I am Naya of the White Elk," she said. Her tone held the cadence of ceremony, like words passed down from generations. "Your father made a vow to protect my bloodline. Now that he's gone, that vow passes to you." Daniel blinked, confusion and disbelief swirling in his mind like storm clouds gathering above the ridge. He had no idea what she meant, but something in her eyes made him listen. "My father." "He was no saint," Daniel muttered. "He made a lot of promises he didn't keep." Naya's chin lifted slightly. "This one he did. He swore it on his life, and now it binds yours." Daniel stepped closer, the fire between them crackling softly. "Protect you?" he asked. Her gaze didn't waver. "No," she said, voice low but steady. "You will take me." The words hung heavy in the air, almost unreal. "Take you," he echoed. "As in," she nodded, "as tradition commands." The silence that followed seemed to stretch forever, broken only by the steady fall of rain outside. Daniel exhaled, trying to steady the pounding in his chest. "Tradition?" he asked finally. "What kind of tradition says a stranger has to—" His voice trailed off. Naya's eyes softened, though her tone remained sure. "My people have an oath. When a protector dies, his heir must join with the one who carries his spirit forward. It binds our clans in peace." Daniel rubbed the back of his neck, uneasy. "You're saying my father promised you— to me?" "No," she said simply. "He promised peace, but now it lives through us." The fire popped loudly, scattering embers between them like stars. He took a slow breath, looking around the cabin that had once been his father's refuge. The old man had always been secretive, half cowboy, half ghost. Daniel had never known the full truth about his dealings with the tribes beyond the ridge. Maybe this was part of it, an agreement born of guilt or respect or something older than both. "Why didn't he tell me?" Daniel asked. Naya's voice softened. "Because you weren't ready to hear it. Until now." She took a step forward, her eyes steady on his. "He trusted the desert and the mountains to make you a man of honor." Daniel's throat tightened. His father had died before they could make peace, before Daniel could tell him that he forgave him for everything. Now here was a woman, fierce, proud and bound by tradition, claiming that his father's last vow was not yet fulfilled. "You don't even know me," he said quietly. "Yet you'd trust your life to mine?" "It's not trust," she replied gently. "It's destiny." The words sent a shiver down his spine. Outside, thunder rolled low through the mountains. Inside, something deeper stirred, a pull older than logic, older than fear, older than grief itself. Naya turned her gaze toward the window where lightning flashed against the trees. "Your father saved my mother once," she said. "When the soldiers came, he stood between them and her people. He swore his family would always protect ours. That is why I am here." Her voice trembled just slightly. "Now that he has walked on, the vow must be renewed." Daniel stared at her, unsure if he should laugh, shout, or bow his head. His world had been made of hard men and broken promises, not ancient pacts and sacred words. Yet here she stood, unwavering. He set down his rifle slowly, his mind spinning. "If I refuse?" he asked. Naya looked at him, sadness flickering across her face. "Then you break your father's spirit." "The land remembers such things." Daniel glanced toward the fire, where a photograph of his father hung on the wall. The old man standing proud, a younger Daniel beside him. Something in those weathered eyes seemed to look back at him now, waiting for his answer. "You think he'd want this?" Daniel asked. Naya's expression softened. "I think he already chose this. The rest is for you to decide." The rain intensified, tapping against the window panes like whispered prayers. Daniel walked to the fire, his boots echoing softly on the wood. "You really believe this tradition binds us?" he asked. "It does," she replied simply. "Not by force, but by faith. By the promise of balance between two worlds that have forgotten how to trust." He turned to face her, really seeing her this time. The strength in her stance, the defiance in her eyes, the quiet pain she carried with grace. There was no fear in her, no hesitation. She had come to claim a promise, not beg for mercy. He sighed deeply, a storm raging inside him. "I don't know how to live by your traditions," he said. "Then you will learn," she replied. "As I will learn yours." Her voice softened, carrying something almost tender. "Your father believed in bridges, not walls. You have his spirit." Daniel's jaw tightened. "I have his temper," he muttered. She smiled faintly. "Both are fire. It depends how you use it." The room fell quiet again, only the wind whistling through the pines outside. For the first time, Daniel realized how small his cabin felt and how much larger his world had just become. As he looked at Naya, standing proud in the glow of his father's fire, something inside him shifted. The grief he'd carried for months eased just slightly, replaced by something else. Respect, curiosity, maybe even fate. "You said this bond brings peace," he murmured. "Between your people and mine." Naya nodded. "Yes, between what was broken and what can be made whole." He took a slow step toward her, the firelight casting their shadows together on the wooden wall. "Then maybe it's time something good came out of my father's promises," he said quietly. "Even if I don't understand it yet." Outside, the thunder rolled again, but softer now, distant, fading. Naya's eyes softened. "Then the vow is heard," she whispered, "and the spirits are at rest." Daniel exhaled, realizing the weight of what he had just agreed to. Not a contract, not a favor, but something deeper. A joining of paths, a bridge between bloodlines. As he stood there, the wind outside shifted, carrying the scent of pine, rain, and something sacred. And for the first time since his father's death, Daniel Blackthorn felt the world grow quiet enough to breathe. Daniel's hand trembled as he set down his hat. "You mean marriage?" he asked quietly, though his voice carried the weight of thunder. The firelight flickered across Naya's face, softening the fierceness that had first startled him. "Union brings peace between our tribes," she said. "His wish and mine." The storm outside roared, wind pressing against the cabin walls like restless spirits demanding witness. Daniel looked into her eyes, fierce, loyal, unbroken, and something inside him shifted. Slowly he nodded. "Then I will honor it." She reached for his hand. Their fingers met. The world seemed to breathe again. The rain came harder, drumming the roof like the heartbeat of the earth itself. Naya's eyes glowed in the firelight, and Daniel could see the mixture of relief and gravity within them. This wasn't a choice she made lightly. Her people's traditions were sacred, older than the borders that had divided them. To her, this was not just a vow. It was a bridge between generations. "There is ceremony," she said softly. "A joining under the open sky. Fire, water, and earth as witness." Daniel swallowed hard. "And if I say yes, truly yes?" Her gaze met his. "Then we begin." They left the cabin as dawn approached, the storm breaking into a mist that clung to the pines. The forest smelled of rain and wild sage. Daniel followed her through the clearing until they reached a small meadow ringed by stones. The air felt different here, heavy with meaning. Naya knelt beside a stream, gathering water in her hands and whispering words he couldn't understand. He watched silently, feeling like an outsider to something holy. Then she turned, the sun rising behind her. "The land bears witness," she said. "Now speak your truth, Daniel Blackthorn." His heart pounded like war drums. He hesitated, unsure of what words could possibly honor what he felt. "I don't know your prayers," he said. "I barely understand your ways, but I know what it means to make a promise. And I won't break this one." His voice trembled at the edges, rough but real. "If my father swore to protect your family, then I'll carry that vow, not out of duty, but because I see the strength in you. Because peace deserves more than silence." Naya studied him, the rising light turning her eyes gold. Then, without a word, she placed her hand over his heart. The world seemed to still. Birds quieted, the wind softened. Even the stream paused in reverence. "The spirits hear you," she whispered. "And so do I." She removed a small leather cord from around her neck, a pendant carved from bone and turquoise. "My mother wore this when your father saved her life. It is a symbol of protection and unity. Now it binds us." Daniel reached for it gently, his fingers brushing hers. "Then I'll wear it with honor," he said. As he tied it around his neck, sunlight broke fully through the clouds, spilling warmth across the valley. Hours later, they returned to the cabin, the world outside washed clean. Daniel felt something new in his chest, not quite love, not yet, but something deeper than curiosity. Naya moved quietly, tending to the fire and drying her wet hair by the flames. "You don't talk much," she said softly, a hint of teasing in her tone. "I talk when there's something worth saying," he replied. "Then speak truth now," she said, meeting his gaze. "Do you regret your choice?" Daniel paused. "No," he said finally. "I think I was meant to find you here." Naya's lips curved into a faint smile. Days passed. Daniel repaired the fence outside, chopped firewood, and hunted in the surrounding woods, while Naya gathered herbs, mended the lodge, and sang quiet songs in her native tongue. Their worlds had been born from conflict, yet somehow they moved together like rhythm and melody, different notes of the same song. At night they shared stories. Daniel told her of his father's stubborn pride, of losing his mother young, of trying to make peace with ghosts. Naya told him of her people, the wars they'd survived, the lives taken and rebuilt. In each other's voices, they found healing. One night, as firelight danced against the walls, Naya traced the edge of the turquoise pendant around his neck. "Do you know what it means?" she asked. Daniel shook his head. "It means balance," she said. Two halves of a promise, earth and sky, man and woman, life and death, each keeping the other alive. He watched her carefully, the flicker of flames reflecting in her eyes. "And us?" he asked quietly. She smiled faintly. "We are both, the promise and the proof." Her hand lingered on his chest. For a moment, silence spoke louder than words ever could. As summer turned to autumn, Daniel and Naya became inseparable. They worked side by side, shared laughter beneath the stars, and built a new kind of life in the shadow of old promises. But the world beyond their mountain wasn't as peaceful. Rumors reached them of soldiers moving west again, of treaties breaking like dry twigs in the wind. One afternoon, a messenger from Naya's tribe arrived, his face tense. "The army comes," he said. "They seek to push us from the valley." Daniel's jaw clenched. "Then I'll fight with you." Naya's eyes filled with both pride and fear. "You would risk your life?" He met her gaze steadily. "Your fight is mine now. You said we were bound, that our fates were one." Her hand trembled as she touched his cheek. Then the spirits chose well. That night they prepared. Daniel cleaned his father's rifle while Naya gathered her bow and feathers. But before the battle came, she stood before him in the moonlight, eyes shining. "If I fall, remember this. Our bond isn't broken by death, only renewed in another life." Daniel's voice cracked. "You're not going to fall." She smiled sadly. "Then let's make the spirits jealous and live." At dawn, the soldiers arrived, their boots thundering like the storm that once brought them together. Daniel stood beside Naya and her tribe, heart steady, eyes unflinching. The first shot rang out, echoing through the canyon, and the world erupted. Smoke, shouts, and chaos filled the air. Yet amid the fury, Daniel fought not with hate but with purpose, to defend what his father once promised and what his heart had finally learned to understand. When the dust settled, the soldiers retreated, defeated. The valley was safe, though scarred. Daniel turned, breathless, searching for Naya, and found her standing tall. She was unharmed, her bow still in hand, eyes fierce with triumph. They met in the quiet aftermath, the earth beneath them trembling with the echoes of what had been won. "You kept your vow," she said softly. Daniel smiled faintly. "We both did." The sun rose high, lighting the smoke-stained sky with gold. In that moment, Daniel realized something. Their bond had never been about tradition or obligation. It had been written long before either of them was born, carried through bloodlines and storms, waiting for two souls brave enough to fulfill it. Weeks later, peace returned to the mountains. The soldiers never came back. The land grew quiet again, green, fertile, alive. Daniel and Naya stood together by the river, the same place where their vow had begun. "Do you still believe this was destiny?" he asked. Naya's smile was soft, her eyes reflecting the water's shimmer. "No," she said. "Destiny brings us to the door, but choice keeps us there." Daniel took her hand gently, his thumb brushing against her skin. "Then I choose this," he said. Every day. The wind rose, carrying the promise across the hills, and in that quiet mountain valley, where rain once fell and spirits once wept, Daniel Blackthorn and Naya of the White Elk became more than legend. They became a living promise. A promise that kindness can outlive blood, that peace can be stronger than vengeance, and that sometimes the fiercest love begins with a vow made by the dying fire of an old man's lodge, and reborn in the hearts of those brave enough to keep it.